All right, so now we're going to walk through a program as it executes on the processor and see how all those parts come together. So first of all, let's back up and say, what's our processor going to do? Here's the same picture we had before, and here's the program that we looked at before. So the first thing the processor is going to do is load the instruction. So we're going to take it from memory, we're going to load it into the current instruction. Then we're going to figure out what operation to do. So to do that, the current instruction is going to tell the control what to do. From there, we're going to figure out what data to use. So we're going to go over here and tell the data registers which data to send down to the compute and do the computation. So the control is going to tell the compute what to do, and we're going to use the results of those registers. Finally, we're going to figure out the next instruction and go ahead and load the next instruction again. So we're going to repeat this over and over and over again until we get through the whole program. So in this lecture, we're going to do this just a quick overview of this without all the details. This gives you a feeling of how it fits together. You're going to get all the details in the rest of the class. So don't worry if it seems like there are a few things that we're glossing over or missing. Just try to get the big picture of how a program executes. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to do on our program is we're going to load the first instruction. So we go ahead and load the first instruction. Now that we've loaded that instruction, we're going to go ahead and execute it. So this instruction tells the control that you're going to load memory location 7 into register 0. So here's memory location 7, it's a 0, and we're going to take that location and we're going to load it into register 0. So the first instruction got a 0 into register 0. Now we go on to the next instruction, and the next instruction is just going to be instruction 1 here. So we go on to instruction 1, we load that. Now instruction 1 says store into register 1 the result of register 0 minus 2. Okay, so we go ahead and we choose the operation. It's going to be subtract 2, because we're doing a subtract 2 in this instruction. And what data are we going to use? Well, we're going to use register 0, subtract 2, and we're going to store it back into register 1. So 0 minus 2 is minus 2. We store the results back, and now we go on to the next instruction, which is just going to be instruction 2. Now instruction 2 gets loaded, and this says jump to instruction number 5 if register 1 is 0. So we tell the control what to do. The control is going to do is it 0? It's going to check if it's 0. What data is it going to use? It's going to use register number 1. So it's going to see is minus 2 0. It's going to send the result back to the control and decide which instruction goes next. So what's the next instruction that's going to be executed here? Well, the next instruction is going to be 3 because R1 is not 0. And so when we check this 0, it's going to be not 0, and we're just going to go on to the next instruction and not do the jump. So R1 is not 0, so we don't jump, and the next instruction is just going to be instruction 3. We go ahead and load instruction 3. Instruction 3 says store into register 0, whatever's in register 0 now, plus 1. So the control goes down to the compute unit here, and it's going to do add 1. We're going to take the data from register 0, which is 0, add 1 to it, and put it back into register 0. So now it's 1 in register 0. Now we go on to the next instruction, which is going to be instruction 4. We go ahead and load instruction 4, and instruction 4 just says jump to instruction 1. So the control looks at it and says, oh, the next instruction is going to be instruction 1. We go to instruction 1, and now we start over again. So now we've gone all the way through the loop, but now our values in the registers are different. So we load instruction 1 again. The operation here is subtract 2. So we're going to load R0. We're going to subtract 2, and we're going to store the results into R1. So now we have 1 minus 2 is minus 1. Now we go on to the next instruction, which is our jump if 0 instruction. We load that. This is going to jump if 0. If R1 is 0, it's going to jump to 5. Well, R1 is not 0, so we don't expect to jump. We go ahead, the operation here is going to be check is it 0. We load R1. We send the result back to the control. The control says R1 is not 0, so don't jump. It goes on to the next instruction, which is just going to be 3. Now we go ahead and load instruction 3, which says increment R0 by 1. So the control is going to tell the compute unit to add 1. We're going to load the value 1 from R0. We're going to add 1 to it and store it back, so now it's 2. And then we're going to go on to the next instruction, which is going to be instruction 4. And instruction 4 is the jump. So the control is going to look at it and say the next instruction goes to 1 because it was jumped to 1. Now we go ahead and load instruction 1 again. So we've gone around the loop 2 times now. Instruction 1 is going to say subtract 2 from R0 and put it in R1. So we go ahead and do the subtract. We get 0. Now R1 is 0. If you remember what's happening, something different is probably going to happen now. We go on to the next instruction, which is going to be instruction 2. We load that. Now instruction 2 says jump if R1 is 0, and it's going to jump to instruction 5. So we tell the control is going to do is it 0, it's going to look at register 1, and it's going to send the result back. So what's the next instruction this time? Well, this time R1 is 0, so we're going to do the jump that's specified here. We're going to jump to instruction 5. So we see that R1 is 0, the next instruction is now going to go to instruction 5. Now we load instruction 5, and we go ahead and put instruction 5 into the control, and we crash. Well, why do we crash? Because this isn't an instruction. There's an invalid instruction. The control doesn't know how to use this, and so it'll crash the computer. But as you saw here, we went around this loop and we executed each of the instructions. We updated the registers, we controlled the compute, we figured out which next instruction to do. This is the basic way a processor works, and we're going to spend a lot of time in this class going through it in more detail. So here's what we started out with, and now you'll have a better feeling for this. We load the instruction, we figure out what operation to do, we figure out what data to use, we do the operation, and then we use the result to figure out the next instruction. And we just did this over and over and over again as the program executed. So this course is about understanding the details of this, how it's implemented in MIPS, the corner cases, the tricky parts, and particularly the performance. How do you make a processor that works like this run fast?